I'm going to be honest here, this is a very simple fix, but I've learned a couple things over the years to make it a whole lot easier and get this windowsill back to 100%. And let's be real here, even if you don't have a water damaged windowsill yet, you're probably going to get one in the future. It happens very, very quickly. So let's fix it. Now, step one, it does not involve a box. That comes a little bit later. It's sanding. The mistake that people make here is they want to take some kind of an implement and start scraping off any of those raised bits. The problem there is you can start ripping chunks out and then you're going to add more steps to the process. So start off by sanding. If you have an orbital sander, you can use that. You got to be careful there. Without a vacuum on the orbital, it's going to kick off a ton of dust. I like to just use sheet sandpaper. 150 grit is going to be the perfect grit. So grab that, grab a scrap piece of wood, cut the paper down, wrap it around. It'll be nice and flat, and just sand down any of the raised bits. Hit all those other little surrounding areas that might be damaged as well. And then just use your fingers, and your fingers are going to tell you the story there as to whether or not there's any ridges or humps left. Sand a little more if needed. Then the next thing you want to do is, if you have a vacuum with a little bristle brush, take that and clean it up. And now you can see I do have one little area where there's a little bit of a divot. To fill that in, you're going to want to use some white wood filler. I like this Elmer stuff in the squeeze tube. It lasts a long time. So grab that. If you have a little 2-inch putty knife, that's going to be ideal. Put a little bit on there and just feather it over and leave it built up ever so slightly so that you're not going to have to do 2 coats. Once that dries, hit it with some sandpaper, flatten everything out, give it a quick vacuum, and we're ready to prime. Now this is where most people mess this up, including myself. If you use a water-based primer here, that wood grain, even though this is MDF, it's the exact same principles as wood, that grain is going to flare up and you're actually never really going to be able to get it to be 100% nice and smooth. What you want to use here is something that is not water-based. This is the best stuff on the market. This is Zinsser Bin shellac-based primer. It's an alcohol-based. The shellac in there helps fill in any of this little rough patch here. And this stuff is just an absolute game changer. I will link this primer, the wood filler, the 150 grit sandpaper, Amazon links in the description. If you use the links, it really helps support the channel and I really appreciate it. Now the key with this stuff here is you need to shake this up a lot more than you might think. Shake it vigorously for about a minute, and then this is where the box comes in. I've just cut off a piece of a box. I'm going to use that as a bit of a backdrop so that I don't get overspray over everything. Before you get spraying the bits there, just test out and make sure that it's coming out with the white stuff. So get that on there. And now for this first coat, you can put it on pretty thick, but you don't want it to pool up. So I'm just going to spray on a pretty nice heavy coat. Let that dry for about half an hour to 45 minutes. Give it a light sand. At this point here, I still like to use the wood block. I'll give it a light sand. We'll hit it with the vacuum, give it one more light coat, let that dry for about a half an hour. And then for that last sand, I like to take the block out. I'll just roll up the paper and keep it in my hand. That way I can get a nice light. I have a little bit better control, and I'll just give that a sand down. We'll vacuum this up, and then you can have a look. That is 100% fixed. The only thing left to do here is to paint this with a top coat. And if you're wondering if you should be using a brush or a roller, you're going to want to check out this video right over here. I've been doing this intro for about 15 minutes of just over and over. Then I watch it and I'm like, could use a little work. So here we are. Let's try it one more time.